For almost a year, the world has been battling the COVID-19 pandemic. COVID-19 is a disease caused by severe acute respiratory syndrome coronavirus 2, also known as SARS-CoV-2. This pandemic began in December 2019 in Wuhan, the capital city of the Hubei province in China. What was first believed to be a series of cases of viral pneumonia was quickly discovered to be novel coronavirus. SARS-CoV-2 belongs to a large family of coronaviruses, and genetic sequencing has determined that COVID-19 bears a close resemblance to severe acute respiratory syndrome, also known as SARS. Since its emergence in late 2019, COVID-19 has continued to spread throughout the world and was declared to be a global pandemic by the World Health Organization on March 11, 2020. With symptoms resembling those of other respiratory illnesses such as influenza, COVID-19 can present with a range of severity in different patients. Symptoms can take up to 14 days to appear following exposure to the virus, and some patients may never show any symptoms. The primary mode of transmission for this virus is from person to person via respiratory droplets. This occurs when the respiratory droplets from an infected individual reach the mucous membranes of another individual, thereby infecting them. While the government has implemented different measures to try to contain the spread of COVID-19, such as wearing masks and enforcing physical distancing, there has been a focus on the development of new antiviral drugs to treat the virus. Firstly, let's break down the definition of a virus. A virus is a small, infectious agent that is capable of invading and replicating within the host cells of all living things. An individual viral particle, known as a virion, consists of the genetic material surrounded by a protein coat known as a capsid. The virus responsible for COVID-19, called SARS-CoV-2, is an enveloped RNA virus, which means that it contains RNA, which is surrounded by a capsid, and an envelope, which is an outer fatty layer. This virus also has a spiky outer surface protein. When this happens, the virus fuses with the host cell, allowing for the viral RNA to enter in our cells. SARS-CoV-2 then replicates itself within our body by hijacking the host cell machinery that is responsible for making proteins, causing the viral RNA to be translated into new copies of the virus. This is where the idea of an antiviral drug comes in. Antiviral drugs are a specific type of medication used to treat viral infections. These drugs are developed with the goal of targeting a virus and inhibiting its replication within host cells. Most antivirals target specific enzymes that the virus requires for the process of replication. Several therapeutic agents have been developed for the treatment of COVID-19. What is Remdesivir? Remdesivir is an antiviral drug that has been approved for use in adult and pediatric patients 12 years of age and older. These patients must weigh at least 40 kilograms, which is about 88 pounds, and should be in a condition that requires hospitalization for the treatment of COVID-19. Just recently, on October 22, 2020, Remdesivir was authorized for use. The approval process for a new drug is timely. 3 randomized control trials were conducted, which led to the approval of our drug Remdesivir. The first trial evaluated how long it took for subjects to recover from COVID-19 within 29 days of being treated. The results of the study indicated that patients who were treated with Remdesivir showed results of recovery sooner than other treatments. The second trial was conducted on adult patients who were hospitalized with moderate presentation of COVID-19 and treated with Remdesivir. The third trial explored hospitalized adult patients with severe COVID-19. Both of these studies did not present any results that were considered statistically significant. Remdesivir is an antiviral drug that is administered intravenously, which means that it's administered as an injection. It has some known side effects, including increased liver enzymes, which may result in liver injury and allergic reactions, which may also include changes in blood pressure, low blood oxygen level, fever, shortness of breath, and swelling, for example, around the lips, eyes, and under the skin. Antiviral drugs are used to treat infections. They target specific viruses. They inhibit the synthesis of new viral components by the host cell as directed by the virus DNA. This prevents the virus from making new copies of itself. More specifically, they convert triphosphates to their active form. These are organic compounds that provide energy to the cell. We will now go through a more detailed explanation of the mechanism of action for remdesivir in the body. So how does remdesivir work? Similar to SARS-CoV, the receptor binding domain, RBD, of S protein on the surface of SARS-CoV-2 binds to the ACE2 receptor on the cell surface to facilitate the virus entering the host cell. The spike protein of SARS-CoV-2 has a stronger binding affinity for the host receptor, which may explain why SARS-CoV-2 has a much higher incidence of human-to-human transmission. The virus exposes its RNA, translates its RNA replicase, and forms an RNA replicase transcriptase complex. Through transcription and replication, the complex forms RNA-negative strands that will be translated for the structural proteins of the virus later. The structural proteins and RNA in the cytoplasm assemble into new viral particles, which are then released from infected cells by exocytosis. SARS-CoV-2 is a positive strand RNA virus. Its replication is mediated by a multi-subunit replication and transcription complex of viral non-structural proteins, NSPS. The core component of this complex is the catalytic subunit, NSP12, of an RNA-dependent RNA polymerase, RDRP. By itself, NSP12 has little activity. NSP7 and NSP8 increase RDRP template binding. RDRP is proposed to be the target of a class of antiviral drugs that includes remdesivir. Remdesivir is a prodrug that is converted to the active drug in the triphosphate form. The structure of the template RTP-RDRP complex contains one NSP12, one NSP7, and one NSP8. In addition, the template RTP-RDRP structure contains 14 base RNA in the template strand, 11 base RNA in the primer strand, and the inhibitor RMP. At the 3' end of the primer strand is RMP, which is covalently incorporated into the primer strand at the +1 position. Despite the presence of excess RTP in complex assembly, only a single RMP is assembled into the primer strand, as observed in the structure. The primer extension is immediately terminated when RTP concentration is high and ATP-RTP ratio is low. Thus, remdesivir, like many nucleotide analog prodrugs, inhibits viral RDRP activity through non-obligate RNA chain termination, a mechanism that requires conversion of the parent drug to the active triphosphate form. Each infected cell produces thousands of novel viral particles that spread to our bronchi and eventually reach the alveoli and extrapulmonary organs. However, the ACE2 receptor is not only expressed in respiratory organs. There are a lot of ACE2 receptors in the esophagus, small intestine, and colon, but fewer receptors in the stomach. ACE2 can also be found in the kidneys and testes. These numbers are nearly 100 times higher than that of the lung, suggesting that these tissues may also be a target organ for SARS-CoV-2 invasion. It may explain why some patients with COVID-19 develop other system injuries clinically besides respiratory system injuries, thus are in more critical condition. Who does remdesivir target? Currently, remdesivir targets hospitalized COVID-19 patients over the age of 12. Although it was just approved for full-time use, remdesivir was granted an emergency use authorization status by the FDA in the early stages of the pandemic. This means it was used for the treatment of patients with severe confirmed cases of COVID-19. These patients were those who required supplemental oxygen, mechanical ventilation, or were on ECMO. During the trials, it was noted that older patients as well as patients with pre-existing respiratory or cardiovascular conditions appeared to be at greatest risk for severe complications. The COVID-19 pandemic has inflicted emotional pain and economic burden across the globe. RNA recognition and remdesivir inhibition of RDRP is highly conserved in diverse RNA viruses, providing a foundation for designing broad-spectrum antiviral drugs based on similar nucleotide analogs. However, it's important to remember that remdesivir is a drug. It doesn't limit the possibility of infection. It can only treat its symptoms. We still need a vaccine, so that should be the top priority for researchers moving forward. We hope you enjoyed our educational video. Please subscribe to our channel and thank you for watching.